Well, we finally have information, pretty good information about the fusion, the next fusion that's gonna come this next month of May, and it's a fusion that is very good for one people, very bad for some other people, for different reasons. So let's have a look at it. Hi, Senda here, and welcome to another Race Shadow Legends video. In this case, we have the information for the next coming fusion. This fusion is gonna come on the 7th of May, so in like a week's time, a bit less than a week's time, and it's gonna be a fragment fusion. That means that we are not gonna be getting a token, it's gonna be a fragment fusion very similar to what Noldua was on its time, so we have a fragment summon. It's gonna be one of these. I mean, these ones don't give out any fusion tokens. So just to keep in mind, just so you know, the other types of fusions where we get rare champions, we fuse them in epics and the epics into a legendary, these give tokens, and also the ones that we get champion fragments, these fragments we transform them into epics, and the epics we eat them for the legendary, those also give tokens, but the ones that are 100% fragment based, these ones don't give tokens. So just so you know, heads up, you can make this fusion. It's great if you wanna get the champion. If you don't wanna get the champion and you just wanna collect a couple of fragments, they're gonna be useful for mod in case that's your objective. But just to keep it in mind that if you're looking for a token, this one is not gonna give you one. However, I think it's a pretty interesting fusion because, like I said in the beginning, it's going to be very good for one thing, or very good for a group of people, and very bad for another group of people. Very good for a group of people, basically because it's a champion for the Shadow King faction that is going to fill a role that no one else does. He's going to be, I'm going to say she, he is, because it's a guy, he's called MASAHIRO the Bell Monk. Now we're going to see a bit more in detail. But he's a reviver, slash healer, slash debuffer. Right now, for specifically Faction Wars Hard, if we want to be able to survive with all the champions, we don't have some of the top champions for the faction, like is my case, the only two options as a solid revivers, we have Yukimasa, but unfortunately he's extremely weak. Low HP, very low defense, on hard faction wars he goes down on the floor very easy, and the other option is Kinagashi, that is probably even worse because her revive is even worse, only one ally, 4 turns, so completely out of the question for hard faction wars. However, Yukimasa could do some game, I think that was the original idea. However, he revives based on depending how many enemies we kill. On faction wars and a bit more hard content, I don't think he quite cuts it. However, MASAHIRO, the Bell Monk, and this is quite funny, I mean, you can see the guy here, it seems like he was a peaceful guy. One day he had enough shit, he decided just to get the stick, start smashing heads and try to find the peace that way. I think that's a bit the plan for this guy. MASAHIRO, the Bell Monk, like I said, reviver slash support champion, even though it's an HP champion, but he's not a damage dealer. His role is not going to be dealing damage, and he's going to be able to revive our team. So let's jump right away into the kit. We have an A1, AoE, attacks all enemies, 50% chance of placing 30% decreased crit rate for 1 turn. This is pretty useful, it's pretty nice, because it means the enemies are not going to be able to deal crit hits on us. With books, this is going to be a 75%, so quite solid, and this is going to, I'm not going to say make a difference, but I think we're definitely going to be feeling that the enemies are hitting us for less and less, because they're not just doing crits. When they have a crit, with the amount of stats they have, they really hurt, and this is gonna help us a bit in controlling the damage. Then we have an A2, attacks one enemy. Before attacking, 75% chance, with books 100% chance of transferring all debuffs from all allies to the target, which is amazing. This is essentially a cleanse. He will clean all the debuffs from all ally champions, and he will just transfer them to whatever objective we choose to. If he has enough accuracy, he's going to need accuracy in order to do this transferring, also in order to apply the decrease rate from the A1, and also to apply a couple of debuffs on the A3. So pretty solid. Cleanse slash transferring also heals all allies by 25% of this champion's max HP, and plays 25% strengthen on allies for 2 turns, so pretty solid. We have a heal. He's an HP base, so I'm guessing he will have quite a big amount of HP, so heal, plus cleanse, plus transfer debuffs, plus strengthen. So he does a lot of things, very solid, very nice, and very useful for faction wars. On A3, attacks all enemies, before attacking revives all dead allies with a 50% HP, 50% turn meter. This is pretty standard, pretty average. This skill can be used even if there are no dead allies, which is great. Is gonna be useful even if there is someone dead, he will revive and then does the rest of the skill, and if there's no one dead, then great, he will do as usual. Also, what this skill does, like I said, attacks all enemies, this is great, and 75% chance of placing a stun for 1 turn and a block buffs. This is great for wave control, which is also super important and super necessary for faction wars. Easy, hard, waves, any kind of content that we have waves, AoE stun, very useful. And 75% chance of placing decreased speed and block buffs, this is going to apply in both places, if the target is a boss, which means it's great because it's very useful, because we cannot place the stun on bosses. So basically it's going to have utility in waves, controlling them, against bosses, debuffing them. For example, on Hydra, this is going to be very solid. Placing decreased crit rate on Hydra heads is pretty good, decreased speed on Hydra heads is pretty good, block buffs in Hydra heads is pretty good, plus a revive. So he does a lot of things, he brings a lot of interesting things. Depending on the type of content you're stuck, he might be the answer, he might be able to fit in some teams if what he brings is what you need. And then the cherry on the top is a passive, a very unique and pretty powerful passive that says, all allies receive 1% less damage for each turn taken by enemies and allies while they remain alive, and it stacks to 15%. What is this? Let's imagine we have MASAHIRO and then another allied champion, and then we have, I don't know, 2 or 3 enemies. Let's say MASAHIRO starts, 1 turn, 1%, then an enemy turn, 2%, then another enemy turn, 3%, and then our ally, 4%. It's been 4 turns before the champion, our allied champion, because it's been 4 turns, 1% for each turn, it accumulates up to a 15, and that means that said allied champion, or literally all allied champions, the more turns pass, it adds 1% and 1% and 1% of less damage taken, which is really good. It's essentially, I don't know, similar to a strengthen, similar to, I don't know, any kind of damage taken in any way or form, ignoring defense or not, we will be able to decrease that by 15%, which is quite a lot. Each champion damage reduction resets when they die or between rounds. If there are multiple champions on the team, blah blah blah, this won't work. And also, this is also interesting, I mean, ideally, Plarium said that this guy is going to be useful for PvP and PvE. PvP, honestly, I don't really see much the point. Can be interesting, yeah, but this part here is what makes me think that there is some interesting combos around that this can work with. Basically, it's telling us allies revived by this champion are immune to stun, freeze, sleep, provoke, fear, true fear, and petrification until the start of their turn. Resets when revived allies take their turn, is killed, or between rounds. So basically, this works pretty good. Let's imagine, for example, Tormin, or let's imagine even Fabian, but let's go, for example, with Tormin. If you know what I mean, you'll know. If not, let's just refresh it. Tormin has a passive that has an active effect that when Tormin dies, revives this champion with 100% HP and places a freeze on this champion for 1 turn. If we have Tormin next to this guy, whenever Tormin revives, MASAHIRO's passive will block, I understand, this freeze, which means Tormin will be able to get the turn right away. So, interesting. Or even, for example, against enemies, let's say we have in front an enemy Fabian, we die for whatever reason and then we revive. Fabian has also a passive that says whenever an enemy is revived, places a true fear on that enemy for 2 turns. MASAHIRO's passive is telling us that said revived ally is gonna be immune to all of this stuff, to true fear, freeze, stun, all this stuff, until the champion takes the turn. I guess let's say the ally takes the turn, then they die again, then we revive them again, and I I would say this passive triggers again. So this is where I can see can be useful on Arena against certain enemies, against certain champions. Not sure if in Faction Wars Hard there's waves with Fabians or Torments or these kind of things, but like I said, interesting, definitely useful, and overall, in general, I think it's a pretty solid champion for a lot of different content. Finally, we have an aura that it only affects Force Affinity allies. It did give them a 23% speed only on Force Affinity allies, so not the best, but not the worst. I don't think he will be the leader of the aura, the team leader that will be applying the aura. There's better options that affect and apply to all the other champions. But like I said, they're pretty solid, pretty interesting. We have revives, we have healing, we have cleanse, we have a couple of debuffs. We have an interesting passive that is quite unique. So I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think in the comments. That's what I want to say about this guy. If you're gonna go for him, if not, if you see usefulness somewhere else that I haven't mentioned. Like I said, I think in waves it's gonna be pretty good. In Hydra it's gonna be pretty good. Faction Wars I think is gonna be very, very solid. I'm gonna go for him. I think he's gonna be useful, at least for my hard Faction Wars team. I definitely need a reviver, and everything else that he brings to the table I think are pretty good things. Like I said, let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks a lot for watching the video, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.